What a dichotomy on Tuesday that Deshaun Watson appears for the first time since March 25th. He's standing in front of the old Brown step and repeat. He's doing what all quarterbacks do at mandatory minicamps, which is make himself available for questioning. This one, however, as we all know, is completely different. He did his best to, if you will, move on, turn a page, keep things moving forward. And then on the same day, Charles Robinson, our colleague from Yahoo, acquires a 230-page deposition taken by the attorney for all of the civil lawsuit folks who are suing Deshaun Watson. And there is so much in there. The 230-page deposition was an interview conducted by Busby of a member of the Houston Police Detective Department that was looking into Deshaun Watson. I will now be quiet and ask you what you make of all this.
Well,
Mike.
I want to go back to yesterday. Right about this time, Deshaun Watson meets with reporters, as you mentioned, first time since March 25. I don't think he was required to do it, and he's definitely not required to answer substantive questions about these cases. I think it would have been better for him if he simply would have said, on the advice of my lawyers, because there are cases pending, I have been told to not say anything about this. That's better than reciting the same old talking points, and we know that they're talking points. You can see as he's delivering it, he is striving to remember exactly what he's supposed to say. I never assaulted anyone, never harassed anyone. I never did anything that I wasn't supposed to do. And I'm innocent of all these claims. And they asked him about settling the case. I want to just clear my name. I want to focus on clearing my name. Well, if that's the case, he should embrace the possibility of a paid leave so he can focus on getting these cases tried and winning them one after another, after another, after another, if he's that determined that he's innocent of all of these civil charges. So I just don't know what was gained. And it's felt like, and really the first domino was the HBO Real Sports feature that has begun this 3 weeks and 1 day of one bad development after another. Some people who previously hadn't sued are now suing, and more could come out of the woodwork. That was the Tony Busby statement from yesterday. Many have sued. Many others haven't yet. I think he had about 9 more months to wait and see until the statutes of limitations run on these claims, assuming that once he was sued the first time, he decided no more of these Instagram private massages. I'm done as of March 15, 2021. So you got until March 15 of 2023 to sweat out the possibility of more cases, and it sounds like there will be more. I just think it's been a very bad 22 days for Deshaun Watson, for the Browns, and I don't see it getting any better, especially if more lawsuits being filed will result in more of these women deciding that they are going to stand up and do what they think they need to do as well to get their specific form of justice.
So what was in this 230-page deposition that again, Charles Robinson of Yahoo acquired? It was the interview of a police detective in Houston that was looking into 10 of the cases, I guess.
Yeah, she was one of the detectives on the case. And, Rich, she testified she believed Deshaun Watson committed multiple crimes. She didn't testify to the grand jury that took up 9 of the complaints. She did testify to the Brazoria County grand jury that took up the 1. It was an incident that didn't happen in Harris County. There was no indictment in that one either. We still don't know, and we never will know specifically why there was no indictment, because there's so much power, there's so much discretion and latitude that a prosecutor has in trying to seek an indictment or not seek an indictment. My big takeaway from the New York Times article, the excellent item from Jenny Vrentas last week, was maybe the prosecutor just didn't want to deal with a dream team led by Rusty Hardin for 2 years, going through acquittal after acquittal after acquittal, because reasonable doubt is everywhere in cases like this. So this detective, now a witness, now called to testify, at least for discovery purposes in the civil cases, believed that crimes were committed. And there are all sorts of things that came up, some different conceptual ideas. One of the big things that Rusty Hardin and the rest of the legal team representing Watson is pushing is this notion of a presumption of innocence that the accused is entitled to in the investigative phase. And that just bastardizes the entire concept of presumption of innocence. That applies once you're charged and facing trial. That doesn't apply during the investigation. If every cop's walking around with a presumption of innocence, nobody's ever getting charged with anything. Somebody walks in and makes an accusation, sorry, we're presuming he's innocent. You better have something more than your story. Well, sometimes all you have is your story. When it's two people in a room at Deshaun Watson's behest, no witnesses, no one else there. The person who believes something happened that shouldn't happen goes in and tells the police, this is what happened. And if the people who are trained and experienced in spotting credibility or lack thereof think it's a credible story, you go forward. And if the defendant isn't going to cooperate, what do? Do you drop it? Or do you take it to a grand jury and see what the grand jury does? So I don't understand that argument. I think it's disingenuous. But I think this is just part of the broader effort by Rusty Hardin to, on behalf of Deshaun Watson, find a silver bullet that ultimately prevents him not just from losing these cases, but from getting suspended by the NFL. I can't imagine at this point how he doesn't get suspended. And I'm back in the camp where I think he should just be put on paid leave until these cases are over.
Well, I don't know how this is going to play out, Mike. Obviously, none of us do, and I don't know really what to make of all of this. Where, let's put it this way: I didn't see the current state of affairs playing out. I always thought, maybe I'm just naive, that if Watson was going to play in the NFL after last year's debacle, really is what it was, and that it would all be handled and settled and done, and that would be done in a rearview mirror, and we would all have to sit here and wonder, what was that all about, and is he somebody worthy of rooting for? Now he's playing. He's been bestowed the greatest contract in the history of player contracts the NFL's ever seen, and this is an open sore that daily can be opened even wider every single day, right? I mean, there's this document is here. How many more depositions are yet to be taken or have been taken or is going to be put out there? How is this sustainable in any way, shape, or form for a player to be out there every day?
Rich, you're absolutely right. And look, I think the Browns went into this with a very simple plan. We're going to take some short-term hits, PR. We're not going to have him available for some period of time. Long-term, we have a franchise quarterback for the next 10 years. At some point, this is going to be no different than it was for Ben Roethlisberger, who got suspended 6 games, reduced to 4. He had 2 complaints against him. They went to the Super Bowl that year that he served the suspension. Within a year or two, it was completely forgotten, like it had never even happened. And by the time he retires, you're an ass if you mention it. That's how deeply it faded into the rearview mirror. Well, that's not happening. It's getting worse, not better. He says he wants to clear his name. I don't think his name is ever getting cleared. Even if he goes 26 for 26 or 30 for 30 or more, as the case may be, there's too much out there. It's lingered too long, and it's spreading. And I think that's where the Browns miscalculated. I think you're right on the money on this. There are too many of these, and that's what I keep coming back to, Rich. They want to accuse Tony Busby, who represents all of these plaintiffs, of being basically the Pied Piper, the ringleader, who's pulling together a bunch of meritless, if not frivolous, claims and holding it together for his own personal fame and notoriety and a big payday, ultimately a third of every dollar that changes hands. But here's the practical reality. Last October, November timeframe, when the Dolphins were going to trade for Watson, they offered each of these 22 plaintiffs at the time $100,000. 18 of them said, yes, I'll take it. 4 held out. Watson said, it's all or nothing. Well, let's think about this. If this really is Tony Busby, charlatan, holding together 24 and counting frivolous lawsuits, how is there not any evidence being developed of these folks being indignant, impatient? I want my money.
Right.
I thought all I had to do was sign this paper and I'm going to get my money. Where's my money? You don't have any of that. Nobody is stepping out of line. Nobody is talking out of school. That's the kind of evidence that would be very persuasive to cut against the idea that we can't disregard the stories from 26 different people. And until I see something like that, in my mind, there are too many of these accusations for there not to be fire at the bottom of all that smoke.